I was sitting at our kitchen table on a Thursday night, going through bills with a calculator and a growing sense of dread. Rent was due in 5 days. The electric bill had a late fee attached. My paycheck from the plant covered most of it, but we were going to be tight again this month. My wife walked in carrying shopping bags. 3 of them. I recognized the logo from that boutique downtown where a single candle costs $40. Hey, I said, keeping my voice level. Can we talk about something? She set the bags down with a sigh that told me she already knew where this was going. What now? We need to cut back on spending. Just for a couple months until we catch up on these bills. Nothing crazy, just eating at home more, skipping the extra stuff. I gestured at the bags. Maybe holding off on shopping trips for a bit. Her face changed. That particular expression I'd been seeing more often lately. The one that said I was being unreasonable just by existing. Are you seriously going to lecture me about a few candles? After the week I've had. It's not about the candles. It's about $300 we don't have right now. I'm not trying to control anything. I'm trying to keep us from bouncing rent. She crossed her arms. Maybe if you made more money, I wouldn't have to worry about buying basic things for the house. There it was. The conversation we'd been dancing around for months, finally crashing through the door. I work 50 hours a week doing maintenance at the industrial plant, I said quietly. $23 an hour. That's not millionaire money, but it's honest work and it pays our bills when we budget right. Budget right. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know who doesn't have to budget? Bryan. Remember Bryan from high school? He's a regional manager now. Drives a nice car. Takes actual vacations. I felt my jaw tighten. Bryan Mitchell, her ex-boyfriend from 15 years ago. This was the 3rd time this month she'd brought him up. Good for Bryan, I said. Good for Bryan? She stepped closer, her voice rising. You know what? I should have married Bryan. At least he actually made something of himself instead of just coasting through life fixing machines nobody cares about. The kitchen went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I looked at her, genuinely looked at her, and saw someone I barely recognized anymore. Most men would have yelled back, maybe thrown something, started a screaming match that would wake the neighbors and solve nothing. I did something else. I pulled out my phone, opened Facebook, and started typing. What are you doing? She asked, her anger flickering into confusion. Following your advice, I said, my voice calm in a way that seemed to unsettle her more than shouting would have. You think Bryan's opinion matters so much? Let's get it. Let's see what he thinks about all this. You're not serious. Dead serious. You just said you should have married him. I figure before we go any further with this conversation, we should check if he agrees with you. I kept scrolling, finding the high school reunion group we were both part of. Sure enough, there was Bryan's profile. Stop it. You're being ridiculous. Am I? I looked up at her. You're the one who just told your husband of 8 years that you married the wrong guy. That seems like something worth exploring, don't you think? Her face had gone from angry red to pale white. I didn't mean it like that. I was just frustrated. Frustrated. Right. I clicked on Bryan's profile. Active 2 hours ago. Plenty of public posts. And there, in his relationship status, engaged to Vanessa Whitaker. I turned the phone around so she could see. Looks like Bryan's taken. But hey, maybe he's got some thoughts about you wishing you'd married him instead. Should we ask? Don't you dare. But her voice had lost its edge. She knew she'd crossed a line, and now she was watching me do something she hadn't expected. I wasn't begging her to take it back. I wasn't defending myself. I was calling her bluff in the coldest, most deliberate way possible. I started composing a message. Just the simple facts. No drama, no emotion, just screenshots and context. Stop, she said, but it was weak now. Please. I looked at her. Why? You meant what you said, didn't you? Or were you just trying to hurt me because I asked you to stop spending money we don't have? She didn't answer. She just turned and walked toward our bedroom, her shoulders shaking. I hit send. Then I went back to the bills, circling the ones that absolutely had to be paid first, crossing out the ones that could wait. The math didn't care about hurt feelings or comparisons to high school boyfriends. The math just cared about what was actual and what wasn't. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later. A notification from Facebook Messenger. Bryan Mitchell had responded. I opened the message from Bryan Mitchell. Hey man. Wow. Okay, this is awkward. First, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Second, I need to be honest with you about something. I sat up straighter, reading the rest. I broke up with her back in high school specifically because she did this exact same thing. She was always comparing me to other guys. Her friend's boyfriend had a better car. Some dude's dad made more money. Whatever. It was exhausting. I was 17 and already felt like I was failing some test I didn't know I was taking. When I finally ended it, she told everyone I was the problem. Maybe I was. But reading these screenshots you sent, it's like looking back in time. Some habits never change, I guess. I read it twice. Then a third time. My wife hadn't just randomly started comparing me to her ex. This was a pattern. A 15-year-old pattern that apparently she'd never grown out of. Another message popped up. Look, I don't want to get involved in your marriage. That's between you two. But I'm engaged now to someone who doesn't spend her time measuring me against other people. It's night and day, brother. Nobody should live like that. Whatever you decide to do, I hope you end up with someone who appreciates what you bring to the table. I typed back quickly. Thanks for being straight with me. Congrats on the engagement. I won't bother you again. No bother. Good luck. You're going to need it. I set the phone down and stared at the bills again, but I wasn't seeing numbers anymore. I was seeing years of small comments, little comparisons, casual mentions of other men's successes that I'd brushed off as harmless conversation. Her coworker's husband who got promoted. Her cousin's boyfriend who bought a house. That guy from her gym who started his own business. And Bryan. Always Bryan. Held up like some golden standard I could never reach. I opened Facebook again, this time looking at her profile instead of Bryan's. I scrolled through her posts from the past 6 months. Most were fine, normal stuff about TV shows and recipes. But scattered throughout were comments on other people's posts. On her friend Diane's photo of a beach vacation. Must be nice. Some of us are stuck budgeting every penny. On a post about someone's job promotion. Good for him. Wish everyone had that kind of ambition. Under a shared article about successful entrepreneurs. This is what drive looks like. Not everyone has it. None of them mention me by name. But the implication was there, hanging in the subtext like a neon sign. She was broadcasting her disappointment to everyone we knew, just subtle enough to maintain plausible deniability. I took screenshots. All of them. Then I did something I probably should have done months ago. I opened her messages with her sister, Natalie. I'm not proud of snooping. But she'd left her laptop open on the couch, still logged into Facebook, and something told me I needed to see this. The conversation from 2 weeks ago made my stomach turn. Her sister, how are things with you guys? My wife, honestly, I'm tired. He's a good guy, but he has zero ambition. We're always broke, and he doesn't seem to care. Natalie, that sucks. Have you talked to him about it? My wife, what's the point? He is who he is. Sometimes I wonder what my life would be like if I'd made different choices. Natalie, like Bryan. My wife. LOL, don't even start. But yeah, sometimes I think about it. He's doing really well now. Regional manager, nice house, the whole thing. Natalie, girl, you can't live in the past. My wife, I know. It's just hard watching everyone else move forward while we're stuck in the same place. I closed the laptop carefully, like it might explode if I moved too fast. She wasn't just frustrated about money. She wasn't just having a bad day when she exploded at me. This was how she actually felt. This was what she actually thought. And she'd been sharing it with her family, her friends, probably anyone who would listen. The bedroom door opened. She came out, eyes red from crying, makeup smeared. Can we talk? She asked, her voice small. Sure. She sat down across from me at the table, careful not to meet my eyes. I'm sorry. What I said was horrible. I was just stressed about money, and I took it out on you. Did Bryan respond? I asked. Her face went pale again. Did he? Yeah, he did. What did he say? I could have sugarcoated it. I could have protected her feelings, the way I'd been doing for months, maybe years. Instead, I turned my phone around and let her read it herself. I watched her face as she read. Watched the exact moment she realized that Bryan remembered her, remembered why he left, and wanted nothing to do with any of this. He thinks I'm. She couldn't finish the sentence. The same person you were at 17? Yeah, he does. That's not fair. People change. I pulled up the screenshots I'd taken of her posts and comments. Slid the phone across the table. Do they? She scrolled through them, and with each swipe, her face got redder. You went through my Facebook? You left it open. And you've been going through our marriage in public, so I figured turnabout was fair play. These are just comments. I was venting. To everyone except me. I leaned back in my chair. You know what's interesting? You told me I don't have ambition. But I've worked at the same plant for 6 years, got 3 raises, and never called in sick unless I was actually sick. I take care of our car even though it's 15 years old. I fix things around here instead of calling someone we can't afford. But that's not ambition to you. That's just me coasting. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. And you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not ambitious enough for you. Maybe Bryan would have been a better fit. I stood up. But he's engaged to someone else. Someone who doesn't spend her time keeping score. So that ship sailed 15 years ago, and according to him, for good reason. She started crying again. Where are you going? Nowhere. I'm going to sleep on the couch tonight. You can have the bed. We can work through this. I stopped at the doorway. Can we? Because from where I'm standing, you've been working against this marriage for months, maybe longer. You just didn't have the guts to say it to my face until tonight. I left her sitting there at the table, surrounded by bills and shopping bags and the wreckage of words she couldn't take back. My phone buzzed one more time before I tried to sleep. Another message from Bryan. Hey, one more thing. If you want my honest opinion about what she said, tell her I'm engaged to someone who doesn't compare partners. Also tell her I remember exactly why I left. Good luck, brother. I smiled for the first time all night. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who'd just been handed all the ammunition he needed. I woke up on the couch with a stiff neck and the sound of her moving around in the kitchen. The smell of coffee hit me first, then bacon. She was cooking breakfast. That hadn't happened in months. When I walked in, she had plates set out. Scrambled eggs, bacon, toast. The works. Morning, she said, her voice too bright. I made your favorite. I poured myself coffee. Thanks. Did you sleep okay? No. She flinched. Me neither. I was up all night thinking about everything. I sat down at the table, but didn't touch the food. Just held the coffee mug and waited. I want to fix this, she said, sitting across from me. What I said was unforgivable, but I want to try. We can go to counseling, work on communication, whatever it takes. Counseling costs money. We'll find a way. There are sliding scale places, community centers. I took a sip of coffee. You really think a counselor is going to fix the fact that you've spent months, maybe years, telling everyone we know that you settled for me? I never said that. I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots again. You said I have zero ambition. You said you wonder what your life would be like if you'd made different choices. You compared me to Bryan, to your friends' husbands, to random successful people online. What part of that sounds like you think we're equal partners? She reached across the table for my hand. I pulled it back. I was venting to my sister. That's what sisters do. You're taking it out of context. Context. Right. I set my coffee down. Here's some context. I get up at 5 every morning. I drive 40 minutes to the plant. I spend 9 hours maintaining industrial equipment in a building that's either freezing or boiling, depending on the season. I drive home. I help with dinner when I can. I fix things around here. I handle the car maintenance myself because mechanics charge $200 just to look at it. And at the end of all that, apparently, I'm just coasting through life with no ambition. You're right. I was wrong. I didn't appreciate what you do. You didn't appreciate it, or you don't respect it. Because those are different things. She didn't answer that. I stood up. I'm going to work. Thanks for breakfast. Are you coming home tonight? I stopped, turned around. I live here. Where else would I go? I just meant. I thought maybe you'd want space. I have space. It's called the couch. I grabbed my keys. Oh, and one more thing. Bryan sent another message last night. He wanted me to tell you something. Her face went white. What? He said to tell you he's engaged to someone who doesn't compare partners. He also said he remembers exactly why he left you. I let that hang in the air for a moment. Seems like you've got a pattern of pushing people away, and 15 years later, you're still doing it. Maybe think about that while I'm gone. I left before she could respond. Work was a blur. My supervisor, Garrett, noticed I was off. You good? He asked during our lunch break in the break room. Marriage stuff, I said. He nodded. Garrett had been divorced twice. If anyone understood, it was him. Need to talk about it. She told me she should have married her ex instead of me. He whistled low. That's rough, man. What did you do? Contacted the ex. He told her why he dumped her in high school. Turns out she hasn't changed much. Garrett laughed, then saw I wasn't joking. Wait, you actually did that? Yeah. That's cold. Respect, though. Most guys would have just yelled and made it worse. He took a bite of his sandwich. So what now? No idea. Part of me wants to see if we can fix it. Other part thinks she showed me exactly who she is, and I should believe her. My second wife used to do that. Compare me to her first husband. Said he was more romantic, made more money, all that. I tried counseling, tried changing, tried everything. You know what fixed it? What? Divorce. Some people are just never going to be satisfied. They're always going to find something wrong because the problem isn't you. It's them. I thought about that for the rest of my shift. Came home around 6 to find her sitting on the couch, still in her pajamas. The breakfast dishes were still on the table. Rough day? I asked. I couldn't focus on anything. I kept thinking about what you said. About Bryan. I put my lunch bag in the kitchen, started cleaning up the breakfast mess she'd left. I called him once, she said quietly. About 3 years ago. I found him on Facebook and sent him a message. Just saying hi, asking how he was. I stopped scrubbing the pan. You called your ex while we were married? It wasn't like that. I was just curious about how his life turned out. And he never responded. I thought maybe he didn't see it. But now I'm thinking he saw it and ignored it on purpose. I turned around. Let me get this straight. 3 years into our marriage, you contacted your ex-boyfriend. He ignored you. And instead of taking the hint, you spent the next 5 years comparing me to him anyway. When you say it like that, how else should I say it? You've been carrying a torch for a guy who wants nothing to do with you, and you've been punishing me for not being him. I dried my hands on the dish towel. That's pathetic. Don't call me pathetic. I'm not calling you pathetic. I'm calling the situation pathetic. There's a difference. I tossed the towel on the counter. You want to know what really gets me? You had a good thing. We weren't rich, but we were fine. We had a roof, food, a working car, each other. And you threw it away because some fantasy version of your high school boyfriend seemed shinier. I didn't throw anything away. We're still here. Are we? Because I'm starting to wonder if you ever really chose me in the first place. Or if I was just the guy who was available when you couldn't get what you actually wanted. She started crying again, but this time it felt different. Not manipulative tears to make me comfort her. Genuine tears from someone who'd finally realized what they'd done. I love you, she said through the tears. Do you? Or do you love the idea of not being alone? She didn't answer. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, one of the cheap ones we bought in bulk, and went to sit on the porch. Our apartment building had these small concrete porches barely big enough for 2 chairs, but it was quiet out there. My phone buzzed. A text from my buddy Elliot. Hey man, still good for Poker Friday? I'd forgotten about poker night. Elliot hosted it once a month at his place. $5 buy-in. Nothing serious, just an excuse to hang out. I texted back. Yeah, might need to crash on your couch after though. Things are complicated at home. Doors always open, brother. See you Friday. I sat there drinking my beer, watching the sun go down, thinking about how life changes in one conversation. Yesterday morning, I was worried about bills and late fees. Tonight, I was wondering if my marriage was worth saving. The answer should have been obvious. 8 years together. Shared history. For better or worse, right? But sometimes worse is just worse. And no amount of vows changes that. She came out eventually, wrapped in a blanket even though it wasn't cold. Can I sit? I shrugged. She took the other chair. We sat in silence for a while. I don't want to lose you, she finally said. Then you shouldn't have spent the last few months making me feel like you already did. What can I do to fix this? I looked at her. Honestly, I don't know if you can. Trust isn't like a light switch. You don't just flip it back on after someone breaks it. So that's it. One fight, and we're done. It's not one fight. It's a pattern. Bryan saw it 15 years ago. I'm seeing it now. The question is whether you see it, and whether you're willing to change who you are at a fundamental level. Because I can't live with someone who sees me as a consolation prize. She pulled the blanket tighter. I never thought of you that way. Then start thinking about how it feels from my perspective. Every time you mention someone else's success, I hear that I'm not good enough. Every time you talk about what other people have, I hear that what we have isn't worth anything. And now I know you've been saying the same things to your family and friends. That's not venting. That's a campaign. We sat there until it got dark and the streetlights came on. Neither of us had any more words left that night, but the ones we'd already said were echoing pretty loud in the silence. Friday came faster than I expected. I'd been sleeping on the couch all week, going through the motions at work, coming home to awkward silence and her attempts at conversation that went nowhere. She tried everything. Apologizing, explaining, promising to change, making my favorite meals, leaving notes. None of it landed because none of it addressed the core issue. She saw me as less than, and you can't unsee that once you've seen it. I packed a small bag before heading to Elliot's place for poker night. Clothes for the weekend, toothbrush, phone charger. She watched me from the bedroom doorway. You're really staying there all weekend? Need some space to think. About what? I stopped packing and looked at her. About whether I want to spend the rest of my life with someone who thinks I'm not good enough. I never said that. You didn't have to say it directly. You said it in 100 different ways. I zipped the bag. I'll be back Sunday night. We can talk then. About what? About what comes next. Her face crumpled. You're thinking about leaving. I'm thinking about a lot of things. Elliot lived in a small house about 20 minutes away. When I got there, the usual guys were already setting up. Cards, chips, beer in the cooler. Glad you made it, Elliot said, clapping me on the shoulder. We can talk after if you want, or we can just play cards and pretend life doesn't exist for a few hours. Option 2 sounds good. We played for 3 hours. I won $40, which felt like the first thing that had gone right all week. Around 11, everyone else headed home. It was just me and Elliot, cleaning up the cards and finishing the last beers. So he said, you want to talk about it? I told him everything. The fight, Bryan's response, the screenshots, the pattern of comparisons. He listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I appreciated about Elliot. He didn't try to fix things. He just listened. When I finished, he was quiet for a minute. You know what you have to do? He finally said. Yeah. But you're hoping someone will give you permission to do it, or talk you out of it, or something. Maybe. I can't tell you what to do with your marriage, man. But I can tell you what I see. You've been different these past few months. Quieter. Less yourself. I thought it was just work stress or whatever. But now it makes sense. She's been slowly convincing you that you're not good enough, and you started believing it. I don't think I believe it. You sure? Because you apologized 3 times tonight for winning hands. You won fair and square, but you kept saying sorry like you didn't deserve it. That's not the guy I've known for 6 years. I hadn't even noticed I was doing that. Look, Elliot continued. I was with someone like that once. Never satisfied. Always pointing out what I wasn't doing right, comparing me to her exes. I stayed way too long because I thought that's just what relationships were. Turns out, it's not. Some people build you up. Some people tear you down. You've been with a tearer for 8 years. 8 years is a long time to throw away. It's also a long time to waste if nothing changes. He stood up, started folding the card table. You can stay here as long as you need. Guest room's yours. But don't stay in a marriage just because you're scared of starting over. That's not a reason. That's an excuse. Saturday morning, I woke up in Elliot's guest room feeling more rested than I had in weeks. No tension in the air. No walking on. No tiptoeing around someone's mood. Just quiet. My phone had 7 texts from her. Good morning. I miss you. Are you okay? Can we talk? Please answer. I'm sorry. I know I keep saying that, but I mean it. I love you. Please come home. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I didn't know what to say yet. Around noon, my phone rang. Her sister, Natalie. I considered not answering, but curiosity got me. Hello. Hey. She told me what happened. Can we talk? Sure. She's a mess. Been crying for days. She knows she messed up. Natalie, I saw the messages between you two. I know what she's been saying about me for months. So if this is a call to tell me I'm being too harsh, save it. Silence on the other end. Then, she showed you those. She left her laptop open. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. More silence. Look, Natalie finally said. I love my sister, but she's been like this her whole life. Always looking at what other people have, never happy with what she's got. My parents tried to fix it. Her friends tried. I tried. Nothing works. She is who she is. Then why are you calling? Because she's family and I have to try. But honestly, between you and me, if you leave, I get it. Nobody should have to live with someone who makes them feel small. I wasn't expecting that. Does she know you feel that way? I asked. No, and don't tell her. But I wanted you to know that whatever you decide, at least one person in her family won't blame you. We hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, thinking about what Elliot said, what Natalie said, what Bryan had said. 3 different people, 3 different perspectives, all saying the same thing. The problem wasn't me. Sunday afternoon, I went back to the apartment. She was sitting on the couch, TV on, but not watching it. The place was cleaner than I'd ever seen it. She'd been stress cleaning, which was how I knew she was genuinely panicking. Hey, she said, jumping up. I'm glad you're back. I set my bag down. We need to talk. Okay. Yes. Whatever you want to talk about. I sat in the chair across from her, not next to her. The distance was deliberate. I've been thinking all weekend. About us. About what you said. About everything. Me too. I want to fix this. I'll do anything. Here's the thing. You keep saying you want to fix it, but I don't think you understand what's broken. It's not just what you said about Bryan. It's years of small cuts. Every comparison, every mention of what we don't have, every time you've implied that I'm not enough. That's not something counseling fixes. That's who you are. I can change. Can you? Because your sister doesn't think so. Bryan doesn't think so. And honestly, after seeing how you talked about me to everyone behind my back, I don't think so either. Her face went pale. You talked to Natalie? She called me. She said you've been like this your whole life. Always wanting what you don't have, never appreciating what you do. Is she wrong? She didn't answer. That's what I thought. I leaned forward. I'm not perfect. I work an average job making average money. I drive an old car and our apartment's not fancy. But I show up every day. I take care of things. I took care of you. And you repaid that by treating me like a placeholder for something better. That's not fair, isn't it? You contacted Bryan 3 years ago while we were married. You've been comparing me to him and everyone else for years. You told your own sister you wonder what your life would be like if you'd made different choices. What part of that sounds like someone who's happy with what they have? She was crying now, full sobs. So what are you saying? I'm saying I deserve better than this. I deserve someone who looks at me and thinks they got lucky, not someone who looks at me and thinks they settled. Don't do this. Please. I stood up. I'm going to stay with Elliot for a while. I need time to figure out what I want. The rent's paid through the end of the month. After that, we'll need to talk about practical stuff. You're leaving me. I'm leaving a situation that's been making me feel worthless for longer than I want to admit. There's a difference. I grabbed my bag, threw in a few more things. She followed me around the apartment, begging, crying, promising things would be different. But promises from someone who'd spent years showing you exactly who they were don't mean much. At the door, I stopped, turned back one more time. For what it's worth, I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope you figure out how to be happy with what you have instead of always wanting what you don't. But I can't be the person who suffers while you figure it out. Where does this leave us? Honestly, I don't know yet, but I know I can't keep living like this. I walked out, got in my 15-year-old car that she'd complained about 100 times, and drove back to Elliot's. My phone blew up with calls and texts. I turned it on silent and went to bed early. For the first time in months, I slept through the whole night without waking up. 3 weeks passed. I stayed at Elliot's, went to work, paid my half of the bills remotely. She kept trying to reach me. Texts every day, calls I didn't answer, emails that got longer and more desperate. Then something changed. Her friend Diane called me. Hey, I know this is weird, but I need to tell you something. She's been posting on Facebook about how you abandoned her, making herself look like the victim. Of course she is. Yeah, but here's the thing. Some of us remember her posts from before. The ones where she complained about you constantly. A few people are calling her out in the comments. It's getting messy. I checked Facebook. Sure enough, she'd made a post about how I left without trying to work things out, how marriage is supposed to be forever, how she's devastated. The comments were split. Some people sympathized, but others, people who'd seen her subtle digs at me over the months, weren't buying it. One comment from her old coworker stood out. Didn't you post last month about wishing you'd married someone more ambitious? Actions have consequences. Another from someone I didn't recognize. Maybe he left because you spent years making him feel like he wasn't good enough. Just a thought. She'd deleted both comments, but people had screenshotted them. The narrative she tried to build was falling apart because she'd spent too long building a different one. I didn't engage, didn't comment, didn't post my side. I just watched as she realized that treating someone badly in public has public consequences. Her sister Natalie texted me. She wants to meet up. Talk in person. You don't have to, but she asked me to ask you. I thought about it. We'd need to have a conversation eventually about practical things. The lease was up in 2 months. We had joint accounts to close. Stuff to divide. Fine. Coffee shop on Main Street. Tomorrow at 2. Public place. 1 hour. Just logistics. The next day, I showed up 5 minutes early. She was already there, looking worse than I'd ever seen her. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back messily, wearing sweatpants. Thanks for coming, she said as I sat down. We need to handle practical stuff. The lease, the accounts, everything. Right. Logistics. She stirred her coffee nervously. But can we talk about us first? There's not much to talk about. Please, just hear me out. She took a breath. I get it now. I see what I did. Losing you made me understand what I had. That's the problem. You shouldn't have to lose something to appreciate it. I know. I was taking you for granted. I was so focused on what we didn't have that I couldn't see what we did have. You were right about everything. I sipped my coffee. Okay. That's it. What do you want me to say? You're telling me things I already knew. You spent years making me feel inadequate. You compared me to everyone. You wished you'd married someone else. Now you're sorry because there are consequences. That's not growth. That's just regret. It's more than regret. I genuinely understand now. I talked to a therapist. She helped me see my patterns. Good. I'm glad you're working on yourself. But that doesn't change what happened. Her hands were shaking. So we're done? Just like that. Just like that? It's been 8 years. But yeah, we're done. You killed this marriage slowly over months and years. I'm just the one who finally acknowledged the body. She started crying. Not the manipulative kind from before. The kind that comes from accepting something you don't want to accept. I ruined the best thing I ever had, she whispered. Yeah, you did. And the worst part is, you did it on purpose. Every comparison, every complaint, every time you mentioned Bryan, you were building a case for why you deserved better. Turns out, I'm the one who deserves better. We spent the rest of the hour going over logistics. She'd find a new place, smaller and cheaper. I'd take over the car since I paid for it. We'd split what little savings we had. No lawyers needed since we kept things simple. At the end, as we stood up to leave, she grabbed my arm. If I had one wish, it would be to go back and appreciate what I had when I had it. I gently pulled my arm away. If I had one wish, it would be that you'd figured that out before you destroyed us both. I walked out of that coffee shop and felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of trying to be enough for someone who'd never think I was, gone. Time to find someone who wouldn't make me carry that weight in the first place. 6 months later, I was sitting at a bar after work with some guys from the plant. Different bar, different crowd, different version of myself. Elliot had helped me find my own place. Small studio apartment, nothing fancy, but it was mine. No tension, no comparisons, no walking on thin ice every time I opened my mouth. Just peace. Another round? Garrett asked. Sure, why not? While waiting for drinks, a woman at the next table dropped her phone. I picked it up, handed it back. Thanks, she said, smiling. I'm Riley. No problem. I'm just a guy who picks up phones apparently. She laughed. Actual, genuine laughter at my mediocre joke. We talked for 20 minutes. She was a nurse, worked crazy hours, drove a car older than mine. She didn't mention anyone's success, didn't compare anything, just talked about her dog and how she was terrible at keeping plants alive. When she left, she wrote her number on a napkin. Call me if you want. No pressure. I pocketed the napkin. Maybe I would. The divorce papers came through 2 weeks later. Simple, uncontested. She kept her stuff, I kept mine. Clean break. I ran into Natalie at the grocery store that weekend. Hey, she said awkwardly. How are you? Doing good, actually. You. Good. Listen, I thought you should know. She moved back in with our parents. Lost her job because she couldn't focus. She's struggling. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you though? I thought about it. Yeah, actually. I don't wish bad things on her. I just wish she'd figured herself out before dragging me down with her. Natalie nodded. For what it's worth, she talks about you constantly. About how she messed up, how you were right about everything. She's become the cautionary tale in our family about taking people for granted. That's rough. It is. But it's also deserved. She shifted her shopping basket. She asked about you last week. Wanted to know if you were seeing anyone. What did you tell her? That it's none of her business anymore. That she made her choice and has to accept it. We said goodbye and went our separate ways. I did call Riley. We went out. Then we went out again. She met Elliot, who approved. She never once made me feel like I wasn't enough. She laughed at my sarcasm, didn't mind my old car, split checks without making it a thing about money. 3 months into dating, we were having dinner at her place when she said, "Can I tell you something?" Sure. My ex used to complain constantly about what I didn't have, what I couldn't give him, how other people had it better. Dating you feels like breathing fresh air after being underwater. I smiled. Funny, I was thinking the same thing. We're a mess, aren't we? Maybe, but we're a mess that appreciates each other. She raised her glass of cheap wine, to appreciating what we have. I clinked my glass against hers. to not comparing partners. Last month, I saw my ex from a distance at a shopping center. She looked tired, defeated. Part of me thought about going over, saying something. But what would I say? We'd already said everything that mattered. She'd spent years wishing she had someone else's life. Now she was living with the consequences of that wish. I had someone who looked at me and thought she got lucky. Someone who didn't need me to be anyone other than who I was. Bryan had been right all along. Some people change. Some people just never learn. I was just glad I finally learned to walk away from the ones who wouldn't. And I never looked back.